Hey, I'm Nick Von Brack, and this is the Record Podcast. Welcome to episode 11. To all my previous listeners, thanks for coming back for this episode, and for new listeners, thanks for checking it out. For those of you who haven't heard the show before, this is a podcast where I talk to musicians and people in the music industry about working in that field, stories that we share together, what it's like in the music industry and outside of it, being a part of it, families at home, stories like that, and it's usually a good time, a lot of good laughs, and some good serious talks too. And today is no exception. My guest for the show today is Durijah Lang. He is the former drummer of Glassjaw and Saves the Day, and is currently drumming for the band Burn. And we talk about a lot of good stuff, actually. We talk about him getting signed while he's with Glassjaw, getting kicked out of the band, rejoining the band, touring the world, being broke, anxiety attacks, his experiences in Saves the Day. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff here. And it's not a super long podcast, but we cover a lot of good stuff. And he had some good rowdy roommates in the background making, cracking wise and having a good time. So that was fun too. So big thanks goes out to Durijah and his roommates for a good episode. Not a whole lot of an intro here. Giveaway this week, since our guest is Durijah Lang, we're going to be giving away a Glassjaw shirt. So same rules apply as always. Just go out there on Twitter, on Facebook, promote the podcast, just get creative. And as long as you tag or link me into it for wherever you're posting it, send me whatever you're doing, then I will pick a winner out of that and I'll get in touch with you. So if you're posting on Twitter, just make sure to tag at the Record Podcast without the A. And on Facebook, it's the Record Podcast, and anywhere else. I think that's it. But get creative and go out there and win yourself a sweet Glassjaw shirt. All right, let's get to it. Here's my interview with Durijah Lang. Nicely done.
Yep, it was my I/O setting. Sorry about that.
Oh, don't worry about it, man. I'm sorry for interrupting your roomies having a good time and you relaxing.
Oh shit! I don't think I was really relaxing. I was cooking. Do you want to say hi to everybody? This is everybody. This is Nick.
Hell yeah! Hey everyone.
Hi Nick.
What are we cooking?
I was making some miso soup, man. You want some?
Oh man, that sounds really good right about now.
Okay.
Where do you live?
I live suburbs of Chicago.
Chicago. You have that accent, man. I always get that.
Like orange slices.
I didn't know the thing to dictate with was orange slices for Midwest accent.
Capri Sun? Could we say Capri Sun?
Capri Sun.
Genuine Midwest accent.
You're a lifer, right, Nick?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah. So how you doing, man?
I'm all right, man. What's cooking with you?
Nothing, man. Just having a baby and working and all that shit.
Are you having a baby?
Had a baby. I got a 4-month-old.
Holy shit! Well, congratulations. How's that?
Super stressful and.
I've heard.
Yeah, no, it's good though. She's doing good.
Okay.
What about you? What are you up to these days? I mean, I just can't get over that I ran into you the last time I was in New York randomly.
That was like super weird because like it's always terrifying when I'm like walking down the street in New York and somebody calls my name. I'm almost
Sure.
like, oh, who's this going to be? But yeah, I was really glad it was you.
Yeah, that was a good little moment, especially because I had worked all day and I was like, I don't want to fucking go out. It's late. I'm tired. And then my buddy's like, yeah, come to this bar. It's this cool thing. It's free, whatever. And then I've done this before where someone walks by and I'm like, no, that's not them. I'm not going to say anything. But I was like, damn it, that looks like Durijah. I'm just going to, you know what? I don't know anybody here. And if I'm embarrassed, I'll just run right into this bar. So I just so happened I didn't have to be embarrassed. And it was actually you in it. And when you looked at me, I was like, oh shit, you have no idea who I am, do you? And then you knew who I was. So it was good.
Yeah. I remember you. We spent some time together.
So yeah, man. So yeah, I try to make these things like as non-formal as possible, but
That's really
um,
good. I'm super not into formal, unless it's like dress wear. I mean, I'd
yeah.
love to wear a suit every day, but I can't.
Well, you can dress formally, but we're gonna talk casually. So if you're in a suit, that'd be preferred. I
Can
want to
you
be
give me about
professional.
5 minutes to get changed?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, cool.
So so I'll just go all the way back. Where not even musically, but like where'd you grow up? Like where are you a lifer on the East Coast?
Oh boy, hometown shout out. Yeah, I'm from Huntington in Long Island, and coincidentally, so is my roommate Ash, which is super weird because we didn't know each other beforehand.
Fuck you and your fucking
Yo, fuck RVA can
That's a tough crew in there, man.
It is.
I'm kind of glad I'm not there. It sounds like a rough and tumble bunch.
He said New Jersey, Long Island.
New Jersey is exactly the same as Long Island.
Okay.
Don't delude yourself. Like, New Jersey is like Long Island with more garbage. Like,
Man, that's really giving it a good name then.
Literally anything's better than New Jersey.
so yeah, I'm from Huntington in Long Island, New York.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty solid answer for that question. I'm not sure how much further I can get into that.
That's good, man. So where does music come in play? Are you like I've talked to a couple people where they were in the high school or grade school band. Some people just like picked it up in college. Like where do you jump in?
For me, like my father was a guy who at least owned a drum set and possibly was a drummer.
Yeah.
And he had a bunch of bands that he played in when I was a child, as well as owning like a record distribution thing that he did for money when I was a kid.
Okay.
And I used to listen to I was exposed to a lot of music through him. And then I also used to like fall asleep in like his bass drum, oddly enough, while his bands were practicing, which seems totally counterintuitive to like sleep. But
yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah, that lays the groundwork pretty well then.
Yeah, so it was something that I've been into since like a very stupidly young age. Like I started like fucking around with his drums before I could hit the bass drum pedal.
So it was always drums. It was never any other instruments, or did you dabble in other?
I mean, he was always very kind of indifferent towards drums because he played them kind of. And like, granted, he played on like a very surface level to some degree, but like you hit it with a stick, it sounds like a drum.
Right.
It's impressive. So he like was really about me playing guitar, and like I did, and like I ended up going to Berklee College of Music for guitar.
Yeah.
When I was like 18, and then I became a drummer because there was just more opportunities for drummers, really,
So did you go to Berklee and graduate, or did you go for a little bit and?
I went there, hated it, and then left. Like basically, I had like a moment of clarity in an elevator at one point in time where like I overheard some of my classmates like just being like, "Man, when I get out of this school that I'm paying like $60,000 a year or something
shit.
like that, or I want to go play in clubs." And I had this moment where I was kind of like, I've kind of been playing in clubs since I was like a kid, since with the dad's friends. Like I don't need to like run myself into fucking debt to do that. Especially considering that like the idea of being a music teacher for me was like really kind of a non-starter.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like any opinions I've heard about people who go to Berklee, either they go there for a little bit and drop out because they realize they don't need to do it, or they go there, graduate, and go, yeah, I didn't need to go there. Like either way, there's pretty much an overwhelming like, yeah, I didn't need to go there kind of feeling about Berklee, or just music college, like going to school for music a lot of the time.
Well, I mean, sure. I mean, going to any sort of art school is kind of a little bit ridiculous in some way, because it's just kind of like, like my girlfriend went to art school and I used to like help her with assignments and stuff. And it was like just madness. It was like, like these people, like, you have to like write these papers about people who like, oh, I took a photograph of another photograph and I'm a good artist. And I'm kind of like, the fuck out of here. Like, you're a con artist, you fucking shithead. Like, And so, yeah, I mean, it struck me as a little bit ridiculous. I mean, I was initially very excited to go to Berklee.
Sure.
As soon as I got there, I was kind of like, this is not at all what I was expecting, and this is like kind of like very confining actually, and I don't like it. And so like I was like, I'm just gonna go like roll the dice and see what happens if I just like put myself out there and go starve in a van instead of doing this.
Sure. So you go to Berkeley and you pretty much knew right away, like you said, this is not for me. Had you been in bands up until going there, or like when did like professionally playing in bands kick in?
I started playing bands with quotation marks when I was like,
oh yeah, that's what I mean. Like high school, whatever, grade school. When does it start?
Yeah, I mean, I was like, not quite grade school. I mean, I tried, but we couldn't get it fucking together. Like, I didn't really know how to structure a song at that point in time.
I would love to if someone came up to you and told you that you got to get the fuck together, man. You're in 6th grade. Let's get this going.
That would be kind of amazing. I would start doing that, I think. Like 2 of my roommates are teachers, and I think I'm going to start going and like finding like they're like musically gifted students and like life coaching them in like totally inappropriate ways and being like, "Do you want this or not?
Drop out now and get in the fucking clubs already, man."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Just do it.
So what? Like, that's something at some point in conversation I always try to like, what were the band names you're in? Because everyone's like high school band names I love hearing because they're always the most ridiculous fucking things, or whatever, grade school or anything. Do you remember how many can you go back to?
I can go back a ways. I'm trying to think of like the first one that I did. We never even played a show because that wasn't something we were capable of at that point in time, I guess. Right. But I think it was like, I'm going to come back to that one if I remember.
Sure, that's fine.
Let's start with, there was Black Rain, spelled REIGN, which sounded really tough when I was like fucking 11 or 12 years old.
Yeah, it sounds like a metal band.
It kind of was. Like, it was like a lot of guys that were into metal, and then like I was kind of just getting into hardcore, so I was like, everything sounded like a bad Biohazard song or something like that. Then there was One Step Down.
Okay, that sounded more hardcore punk band name.
It is, and that band eventually became Days Lost.
Okay.
And then after that, what else was there? There was Undermined, also similar genre. And then there was a band called Knives in Greenwater, which is actually kind of like literary, and like I'm not embarrassed about that because it's from a Hunter S. Thompson novel. But
fair enough. So that's when it starts getting,
having some taste and like, being kind of like, oh, maybe I shouldn't just slam 3 words together.
Yeah, I think the first high school band I was in, we went to Blockbuster when we didn't have a band name, and we picked out a movie. We're like, that sounds cool, and we were Above Suspicion, and that was the name of our band. And it was like some Samuel L. Jackson like random movie I'd never heard of, and I still haven't seen to this day. But yeah, that was
probably get together and watch it next time we hang out. We can both like Kangol hats and sit down together and say motherfucker. It'll be great.
I'd love that. Yes. So in the midst of all that, do you remember like anything happening where like, oh, I kind of want to do this professionally, like outside of going to Berkeley or anything? Is there a point where, I don't know, you go to a show or anything like, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to tour and just, pursue this.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's weird because, like, as a young kid, before I understood anything about, like, because, it's kind of like playing fucking Powerball. It's like,
right.
I have a better chance of, like, falling down the fucking stairs and breaking my stupid neck buying the ticket than I do of winning. So it's just kind of like, like, when you're a kid, you don't realize those things, and that's not even information that you're able to deal with. So it's like, as a young kid, it was like kind of like, I want to be in a rock band or whatever.
Yeah.
Then like as you get older and you start realizing that life is horribly fucking depressing sometimes and you don't necessarily get what you want to do. It's like kind of like it became less and less of a thing that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But then I started like touring a lot, and I was touring just because like, hey, this gets me the fuck out of New York, and I hate Long Island, and like, you know, like if like I just wanted to get out. And,
yeah.
like, it wasn't necessarily a career choice so much as it was just kind of like, this is something to do.
Yeah.
In some sense. And, you know, I still remember being very bewildered when certain contemporaries of mine started like actually having like careers in music. Like when Saves the Day got like a video on MTV and like a tour with Weezer, that seemed impossible to me. You know, it was a really weird time because like, I mean, that shit seems so quaint now. It's kind of like, oh, you have a music video? But it was like, at the time, that was kind of a deal, you know?
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, I mean, you know, like, it was weird seeing friends that I had, like, grown up with. And my roommate's appreciating your avatar right now on Skype, actually. It's for anybody listening, if this makes it in.
Yeah, good pronunciation. That's good.
Really?
Is that correct?
Yeah, it's surprising a lot of people. It's pretty phonetically spelled, and like half the time, people screw it up pretty easily. So that was good. I love this element that's going on right now. I love everything about it. So you actually brought up Saves the Day, and I was going to ask at some point, so I was asking now because I just kind of assumed you and Manny like jumped into the band like they needed people, and you know were kind of like hired guns, but you, by the sounds of it, you knew them, or like you said, you were contemporaries way back. So where do you
together? But I mean, like we didn't necessarily like hang out. And
okay.
Friends. I mean, it was like we eventually figured it out once me and Manny were doing it that like there was this one show we all played in, I want to say Delaware, at like University of Delaware, where it was Eben's first show with Saves the Day, Manny's first show with Glassjaw, and then also Eben's last show with his old band that I would go on to play with as a new band called The Strider.
Okay.
And like it was just like basically everybody that was significant in my life for like the next 15 years was in, like on the same stage at one moment kind of thing.
That's crazy.
Like, we didn't know each other. So it's like super incestuous and weird. But like, yeah.
And I feel like anytime I've seen you for a long time, anytime I've checked in or when we crossed paths, you and Manny were always like a package deal. How long is that? Like, have you guys just always been in bands together for a long time, or how did that come about?
I mean, it started with Glassjaw, really. Like, he joined Glassjaw right before we got signed, right before I got kicked the fuck out. And, then, like, you know, I wasn't in Glassjaw for a long time, or a decently long amount of time when you're that age.
Sure.
And in 2005, like, I got the phone call about doing it again. And at first I was kind of like super reticent to do it.
Right.
But then, like, I heard that Manny was possibly going to do it. And, you know, I love Manny as a bass player. So I was like, I hung up with Beck and I called Manny and I was like, are you actually going to do this thing? And like he was like, yeah, I think so. Like I think Manny might have been the one that actually like brought my name up to Beck.
Gotcha.
But pretty much like since then, 2005, we've done just about everything together. Like I did one rehearsal with a bass player that wasn't Manny a couple of years ago, like 3 or 4 years ago, and it was kind of frustrating and a bummer.
Well, when you know what you like, you stick with it, man, and that's kind of nice for every band you've been in. So it's not like, you know, for them, they know that you two are, you know, you play together and you know each other well. It's not like a complete, you know, guessing game. And for you two guys, you don't feel like, all right, let's see what this thing's all about, and I'm by myself. Like you have someone to go in with that situation. So I think it works out pretty damn well.
I mean, he was in Saves the Day before I was. Like,
okay.
Like a couple years, I think, of it on me. But like, when I guess their old drummer Pete Parada quit right before a tour.
Okay.
And Manny, I guess, was just kind of like, I have an idea, and called me and was like, are you available? And I was like, yeah, my band just broke up, actually, oddly enough. And then he was like, could you play these kind of songs? So I hadn't been playing pop punk in a long time. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I'll have to get back in that kind of headspace. But I mean, I've done stuff like this before. I mean, the Strider was kind of very similar to what Saves the Day was doing,
Okay.
So it was it just worked out.
Say what you wanna say, 'cause I can see by your face that something's not the same. Hey, everything's okay. I love you more than I can say, but we can't say the same. Yeah.
And even before all that, so what? I think at least my little bit of knowledge that I have is the first serious professional touring band that either got signed or was you were pursuing it full time. Was that Classic Crime, or what? How far back does it go?
Oh, I mean, I guess. Well, it wasn't Classic Crime. Classic Case was the band that I was.
Classic Case.
Classic Crime is, I think, a tooth and nail band.
Gotcha.
We were always confused for them, so it's actually kind of amazing you said that.
I'm just showing how little I know.
It's okay, man. Ain't nobody know. Yeah, I guess the first band that got signed was Glassjaw. I mean, I was really young when that happened.
Yeah, so how old were you when the history of at what point you were in what bands, it just is, I mean, to me, I'm just you were in all these bands at all the same time in my brain.
No, that's not how that happened. Thank you. But no, I was 18 when Glassjaw got a record deal, and it was super disorienting because if you're that young and stupid, you kind of feel oh, this is it. My life is totally going to change.
Sure.
It's totally not that at all. It's just I mean, even if I hadn't gotten kicked out, it would have been just years of doing tours where nobody cares about your band and just eating crow,
Yeah.
I mean, things started happening better when I started doing it again in 2005. But to hear Beck talk about it just sounds like they were grinding really hard for however many years, and then they took a break, and then they came back, and it was kind of people were interested all of a sudden.
That's weird how that works, man. Especially because I mean, in the bands that you've been in, it seems like, from what I know, yeah, you were in Save the Day and Glassjaw. And those are, and both times that I've seen, well, not both times, I saw you with Save the Day more than a couple times, but just seeing you at the times that I saw you with those bands, I mean, it was just massive crowds. So I could not imagine you being in that band at a time where it wasn't that, because that's my knowledge. That's just what I saw. So it's just crazy to me.
It Saves the Day, that was always pretty substantial audiences for me.
Yeah.
I was more than, I was really thrilled with my life when I first started playing with them. It was it literally the Saves the Day gig changed my fucking life in a lot of ways, just in terms of consistency of touring and being able to kind of not be just terrified of being evicted all the time and shit like that.
Yeah.
And then the Glassjaw thing, whenever we were touring, was a similar kind of bag where it was just it was really good by comparison to what I've been doing. Because, I was so used to okay, you go on tour for 2.5 months or something like that, and you come home with $600 that aren't even really yours because they're technically the merch companies. And so you're essentially living off making debt kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then, I was living down south at the time, so rent was super affordable. So it was like you run to your like part-time job and, you work 4 shifts to make rent. And so you can bank the $600 that you'll eventually have to pay back anyway.
Right. So what was that like at the time? Like, cause even me, I mean, us touring and then going to work jobs, that was nothing. Cause no one knew who we were aside from like a couple friends here and there. But like in the position you were in, if you were off tour with Glassjaw and Saves the Day, I mean, would people ask and you'd be like, would you even say what you were doing? Or would they be like freaking out? Like, what are you doing here? Like, why are you like, cause I always love the disconnect some people have who don't know. They're like, what do you mean? You're in a band, you tour. Like, why are you working anything else? Like, aren't you set now?
I mean, I got a good story. I mean, like, I wasn't really doing much except for playing music when I was doing both Glassjaw and Saves the Day, because that was like,
sure,
it was enough to kind of float me. I mean, I wasn't like, it wasn't like a rap video, but it was like, it was sustainable kind of. But like, there was this one time, and it's funny because like he's involved in music, but Billy, my friend Billy Reimer from Dillinger Escape Plan, like when I moved back to New York, like, we started hanging and stuff. And one time he came to like pick me up to go to a jazz show in New York at my mom's house. And like, my mom's like, done well for herself. She's grinded her whole life kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like, he like rolls up in the driveway and like I get into the car with him and he kind of like looks at me and he goes like, did you buy this house with Glassjaw money? And I was kind of like, you shouldn't do this, motherfucker. Like, I bought some clothing with that, meals, but like, yeah, there's no way. There's just no fucking way,
Oh man. I mean, and that's like for a long time I wanted to do, like my big idea was I want to do like a documentary or some kind of little series that kind of debunks or shows that other side. And then I ended up just kind of working my way into doing this that would eventually people would tell stories to kind of like, showcase that stuff. But I love those stories. I love people like figuring that out. And I guess it's more apparent now, people posting stories online and getting more involved in the background of bands and stuff. But like just seeing a person's face for the first time and be like, wait, like they're still at home. They live at home with their parents. Like, what is that about? Like that blowing their mind. That you don't fucking make any money.
When me and my ex broke up and I moved from Houston to like New York, it was just kind of like I was so financially devastated from everything that it was just kind of like I didn't have a choice in the matter. I was lucky that I had that as an option.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess that is kind of a thing. People, I mean, I feel like people assume it's kind of like I've been to Glassjaw shows. There's thousands of people there. It's like, sure, but everything about those shows costs money. It's just like that's just the reality of it. So it's like your take home, even if it's pretty solid, is kind of like. I mean, it's not bad, but it's not good.
Yeah. By the time you paid for traveling there and eating and your rent and all. Yeah, but you're lucky to have a little bit just left over in your pocket. It's like, all right, back to square one.
Sure. And like, it's kind of like, like it's hard to bitch about because it's like things where it's like, like ostensibly this is a choice that I made.
Yeah.
But like, it's still just always like kind of like sadly funny to me how like crazily wealthy people assume you are if you're in like a certain level of band that's totally not that. They're kind of unless live here in your Bentley, and I'm kind of like I hate cars. I don't even know,
Yeah, unless your band is getting songs like in movies and shows and shit. Like unless you're going that route, if you're just touring and just grinding it out, yeah, you're not. You're just kind of getting by.
Sure. I mean, like sequencing, like, like doing like movie songs and stuff like that and commercials is like a very viable revenue stream. And if you really didn't like it, but I mean, it's just kind of like, unless you're like a very specific kind of band, that's not super duper open to you.
Right.
Like,
that's true.
And then it's also like one of those things where it's like, I mean, for me, there's something inherently kind of sad about like somebody basically only getting money for their art via like attaching it to some sort of advertising.
Yeah.
And like, you know, I mean, not to say that I'm like above that or some shit. I would totally do it. But I mean, it's just like, it's still like one of those things where it's like kind of like, it's kind of like prostitution a little bit. You know?
It's just a bummer that it has to come to that, because really outside of that, unless you're selling albums or you're doing well otherwise, you kind of have to just pimp yourself out to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So when, like, I've talked to a few different people who have done the multiple bands at once thing, and I think your level of it is kind of a different level, being in two well-recognized bands. But something that I'm curious about is like jumping into a band like Saves the Day, or bands that are kind of already going or that already have a history. Do you kind of sort out like what your role is in it, in terms of like, all right, so you're not a founding member, but you are playing with us now. So does it, like, I don't know, like, not, I guess not necessarily only money stuff, but like, I feel like that could get muddy, because like in Saves the Day situation, Chris is the guy. So then after that, it's like, is there anything discussed, or do you kind of just say, you know, whatever money comes my way is fine? Like, I mean, it's a serious business, so you kind of have to figure that out. But I'm always curious for.
I've gotten good over the years of basically being like, this is what I need to keep doing this. And
Gotcha.
That is less tricky for me in a lot of senses, because it's just like, it's not really debatable. It's like, you know, I need X amount to fucking stay alive.
Right.
But the thing that gets really dicey is with like where people will make like deals about like percentages of like whatever with you. It's kind of like, and they don't want you to necessarily critique
Right.
the direction that they're going, but you also have an active interest in it now, because you're somebody who makes a living by selling records.
Right.
It's like, you know, or just even people coming to shows, it's like, you want to write a song that keeps people interested.
Sure.
And like, no, sometimes it's like, you know, that can get super tense and awkward, and like, it's actually like a bummer. I mean, like, I think at this point in time, like, maybe me and Manny will start a band that's like our own thing, but like, I don't know if I'm ever going to be like an actual like dyed-in-the-wool member of any band ever again, just because it's like, it seems way simpler for me to like just relinquish control and be kind of like, this is what I need on a weekly basis.
Yeah. I don't know if you know this. I talked about it one time, I forget, in a different conversation I had with somebody, but there was a minute right after you left where I almost jumped in to Saves the Day. I don't know if I ever told you that.
No, you never did, man. That was amazing.
It was kind of bad circumstances, because I just left Dr. Manhattan and I went off to school, and then I saw some announcement that you and Manny left, and so I texted Chris and was like, hey, if you need a fill-in for like a tour or something, let me know. And then it ended up bouncing back and forth to him being like, well, do you just want to jump in full time? And I had this weird moment of like, I don't think I can do that, man. Like, as much as I want to, I just left this band because I said I didn't want to like be gone anymore. So I felt it was kind of it would have looked shitty on my part, but
sure.
But there was a minute where I was like, shit, I probably should just do this right now, huh?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I get it. I mean, like, I keep going back and forth about how much of my time I want to devote to playing music at this point as well. Where It's like, you know, to some degree, I just want to do whatever I want to do.
Yeah.
If you're doing it professionally is not super feasible. And like, particularly with my interests, it's kind of like, you know, I like to play like obnoxious music that's for like snobs. So it's just like, you know, that's not a huge market.
But you have chops, like, you know what you're doing, whereas I cannot read music. For if I had to save my life to do it, I can't fucking make sense of it. So I feel like even on your end of it, you could be giving lessons or doing things to like if it really came down to it and you really had to do something, you could go that route. Have you considered that?
I've done some lessons and stuff like that. I mean, it's weird because I'm actually like, especially with drums, I'm more or less self-taught.
Right. Okay.
So like, I can read, but it's a struggle.
Yeah.
And you know, like, There's nothing worse than like, like a student like looking at the teacher and being kind of like, you have no idea what the fuck you're talking.
I gave one lesson one time. My brother-in-law was like, "Oh, my buddy's younger sister wants to learn to play the drums," and I was like, "I don't know." And I mean, this is a long time ago. I was like, "I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna tell this person. I have no idea." So I think all I did was I put on music, and I was like, "Okay, we're just gonna listen to like these different drummers, so you can see what kind of different music." I think I put on like Blink-182 and Dillinger Escape Plan. This was like a middle school girl or something, and like just tried to show her that there's all these different styles. And then I think the rest of the time I just spent like setting up her drum kit, and that was it. So
listen, Travis, I have to talk to my roommate for a second. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Sparker is easily the most interesting thing in Blink-182.
Oh, easily. Well, no, because Tom said he got abducted by aliens.
Well, yeah, Tom has lost his mind apparently. That's unfortunate.
I played his fucking podcast for my students. I teach 73.
Tom DeLonge has a podcast?
Wait, Tom DeLonge has a podcast?
And Tom said that he got abducted by aliens and then they exist.
You're not part of the
No, we all are. Hey, Forbes, do you want to say hi, Forbes?
Forbes, say hello.
My name's Michael Bolton, and
Oh, that's...
All I heard was Michael Bolton.
Michael Bolton does live here, though. I do have a roommate named Michael Bolton. And that's not a joke. And it's also not that Michael Bolton.
It's not actually Michael Bolton. He sings for us every night. Balance.
That's incredible.
One time, tonight.
Wait, is that him?
No.
Okay.
No, it's us. That was great.
Yeah, it's like a while.
There's a good vibe going on in that place. Is this what it's like all the time there?
I mean, not all the time, but pretty regularly. It's pretty giggly and copacetic more often than not.
So where do you live now? Is it Long Island, or are you more in the city?
No, I'm in South Williamsburg. It's Brooklyn, so my roommate wasn't wrong, but yelling it in that accent probably is like a bit far for this part. Like it's more like I live in Brooklyn. Like,
that sounds more like a basic white girl accent.
Yeah. Yeah, so like South Williamsburg is like pretty mellow.
So my knowledge spans about this far. I think I saw last time I was in New York when I saw you was like, I don't know, 6 months ago or 9 months ago, and then I came through again, but I stayed with my buddy who lives in Park Slope, I think.
Okay.
And I've got another friend who lives out there, but the last time I came through I was out, and so I don't know. I have no geographic idea as to how far those are apart, but that was where I was the last time.
Park Slope is about 15, 20 minutes south of me driving with no traffic.
Okay.
Or about an hour from me walking and taking the subway.
Okay.
And that's only because the subway is super convoluted if you want to like avoid going back into Manhattan.
Okay. I was surprised at how clean, like compared, I don't know if you've ever ridden the L or been in Chicago and ridden public transportation, but like I was expecting it to be the exact same in New York, and it was like super clean and nice. I was like, damn, like this is legit.
It's like really funny you say that because I feel like I mean, I've never ridden the L train in Chicago, but like I've heard about it. And I feel like it probably, like the Chicago elevated train is like similar to like the NYC subways in like the 70s and 80s and maybe 90s. And like it's gotten way cleaner, but contrasting that, like my girlfriend's parents are both Hong Kong natives, and like their subway system is first off like crazily punctual.
Yeah.
Like so punctual that like when I was there with her, like we missed the train once, and like I was upset about it, and she was like, "What are you upset about? They're the other one in 2 minutes." And I'm kind of like, "What are you talking about? You just missed the train." And she's like, "Sure enough, the other train's there in 2 minutes. It's that." And like, but like beyond that, like when her parents came here to visit, like they were kind of like just looking at the subway and then like looking at me and being like, "Why do you assholes live here? It's just terrible."
That's awesome. You've been to Hong Kong. That's pretty incredible. And how far in the world have you? But that was like personal. You said that's your girlfriend's family's out there.
Well, I mean, I also played there with Glassjaw. Actually, the first time I went to Hong Kong was for a Glassjaw show.
So that's what I was going to ask. How far in the world have you traveled for touring? And that's pretty fucking sweet.
It's oddly enough, I've done like very little in like Europe, but I've been to Australia a bunch of times, and I've been to Hong Kong, which is weird. And then also some crazy how I've never been to Japan, despite the fact that like it seems like bands of our band's ilk seem to do really well in Japan, but like every opportunity that was ever presented fell through for some crazy reason, you know?
So where would you say is the place you enjoyed going to the most? I mean, Australia, Hong Kong. I don't even know how you really compare the two, but is there one that you liked more than the other?
I mean, I like Hong Kong because Hong Kong like reminds me of like New York, but like it's cleaner, and like because the first language is in English, I never have to talk to anybody if I don't want to, which is super appealing to me.
So that's your ideal place, is a place that's like New York, but where English isn't the first language, so you don't have to be bothered by anyone.
Well, I mean, it's more complicated than that. It's also I do really like the culture, and I do really like. I mean, like, you know, like I'm a sucker for some like really sick Asian food, so it's like Hong Kong is lousy with it, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, you know, great public transportation. Nobody wants to talk to me. It's great. It's perfect.
And what is playing out there like? Because that's, I mean, going out after a show or like just traveling on days off and wandering around is one thing, but like playing to a completely different kind of crowd, is it better, worse, the same?
It was cool. Like there was actually a bunch of kids that like flew to Hong Kong from the Philippines, from Manila.
Wow.
To see us play, which was like kind of rad. So like we like hung out. Because like there's no like open container laws in Hong Kong. It's like a British protectorate, and like so like we would like, you know, hang out with these kids out in front of like the freaking place we played, and like talk to them for a while and stuff. And like everybody was just like super welcoming and super just like nice and excited to talk. You know,
that's awesome.
Had no money.
That, and then also, I mean, this is more of like a specific kind of thing, but like. Our booking agent / tour manager at the time with Glassjaw, like after the show, we went to this 24-hour like noodle shop.
Okay.
And you know, you're in Hong Kong, you figure you have great access to like just the best Chinese food.
Right.
This dude orders spaghetti bolognese and fucking Hong Kong. It was like the most kind of like regrettable Philistine noodle my entire life.
Well, that's like any story here of people who go to Japan, like, oh, I went to the McDonald's like 3 times. I'm like, how do you go to McDonald's when you're in Japan? Like, how is that a thing? But every person who goes there at least once.
I mean, it is. I mean, the reality is like the McDonald's are different overseas, specifically in Asia. But it's like it's not different enough where that would be like my first choice.
Right.
Like, you know, I mean, I don't go to McDonald's here, so I'm sure shit not going in Asia.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome, man. I mean, I can't. We only ever almost went to Europe once, and outside of that, it was nothing. So just the idea of like, all right, now you're gonna take a 14-hour plane to, you know, to wherever, Hong Kong, or like a 20-hour flight to Australia, and then figure out how to wake up from that in a couple days and then play in sweaty, hot ass area and then just fly right back. Like, that just sounds insane.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I'm like some sort of a masochist, but like that's the time doing it, man. Like, especially because like the first time I flew to Australia, like I like took like an Ambien with like a cocktail on the runway and like fell asleep on the runway, and I woke up in Auckland 14 hours later, you know.
That sounds like the ideal way to go. Just nod off and wake up and you're there.
Exactly. It was great. I highly recommend it.
So I see every now and then I'll see if you'll post stuff on Facebook where people will tag you. I just see you like kind of bounce around and playing all kinds of random shows. Like what are you doing? Yeah, what are you doing now? Just kind of catching shows here and there? Or?
I mean, me and Manny have been doing this band called Burn that was like an old New York hardcore band that we both grew up listening to.
Okay.
And so we've been doing shows with them for like the last year or so. Aside from that, we've been doing like random like session work here and there. Like me and him have been working on this thing with this classical violinist who's ridiculous.
That's awesome.
He wants to do like a basically like a free jazz record kind of thing.
Awesome.
And so it's like super outside of my comfort zone, and therefore it's like super fun,
Yeah.
So we've been doing that, and then really like I just basically try to say yes as often as I can.
Yeah. Why not?
I get 30.
I generally have to be playing than not.
Yeah. And if you've got the time and you're available to do it, I mean, you're too good a drummer to just like pick up an office job. That would make me sad to hear.
I don't know, man. I've been looking into that too. I mean, like, at this point, I mean, I'm 35 now, so like stability sounds like almost kind of like. I know I said I didn't really want this, but this might be actually kind of awesome.
It's funny because like. So when we were touring, I'd talk to my buddies and they'd be like, yeah, I got office jobs. I hate it. I fucking hate my life. And then at the time I was like, yeah, that sounds awful. I'll never do that. And then once I left and went to school and started like working those jobs, I was like, yeah, I'm kind of into it. Like same thing. Like, yeah, I know when I'm going to get home. I know what my check is. All right. I can get into that. Like, it's not so bad.
Yeah. I mean, like that's never seemed like terribly unappealing to me. I mean, the only conceit is that like I'm definitely the kind of person where like if I wake up and like see the same scenery too many days in a row, I get a little bit squirrely sometimes.
Sure.
But I'm not sure if that was like something that was like I was predisposed to as a youngster, and like now it's kind of like I'm old and boring, and it's kind of like literally I've been making miso soup all night. Like I'm pretty fucking domestic.
But that sounds like a great night, just a night of hanging with friends and miso soup. That's a solid night to me as well.
I'm not complaining.
So what? I guess when you look back on all this crazy bouncing around bands, playing shows and shit, like I don't even know what highlights would stand out. But are there things that you like? Did you like being in one band over the other? Did you just like, I liked going to Hong Kong with this band that one time? Like, what are the things that like stand out to you in that like mishmash of all that?
I mean, I don't know how you feel about these kind of things, but I mean, like, I kind of feel like they're all very different experiences because there's different people involved and different levels of things involved. But like, I mean, like there are even things like with like tours that at the time when I was on them, I was like this is fucking terrible. What am I doing with my life? And then just like having like terrible anxiety attacks and like I can't keep food down and I'm just throwing up all the time. And like, but like I look back on those things almost fondly now because, nostalgia tends to do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like, yeah, I mean, like I like all of those things for different reasons.
Well, that's like a side I haven't had to talk with someone about with you, and that's super interesting to me. Like, because most times you think that's another assumption. You're in a band, you're touring, you're having the time of your life all the time. It's a party all the time. But you're saying like you're having anxiety attacks, like you're stressing out, like. That's a whole other aspect to it that like no one would assume is happening to anyone in a touring band.
Oh, it can be like just really terribly fucking stressful. I mean, like
soup looks amazing.
You should have a bite.
Can I warm it up a little bit?
You should probably do that as well.
Like, was that happening in early days or throughout touring? Like you'd have random like bouts of like, I can't fucking do this right now. Like I got to get the hell out of here.
Yeah, I mean, like, like...
Okay.
I've had it happen over the years for different reasons at different levels. I mean, it's also kind of like your life changes. I mean, like, when I was first started doing this, I was, like, pretty fucking punk. I was kind of like, yeah, I'm just going to do this forever, man. Fuck this shit. I don't care. I'll die in a van. This will be great. But, like, and then you turn 20, and that's no longer okay.
Yeah.
But, generally as you like progress as a human being, like the things that are no longer acceptable to you change,
Yeah.
But like there's been a lot of times that I've been like completely like anxiety ridden for a variety of different reasons. And like, sometimes it's because like, when I was like, in my like early 20s, it was like just terrible tours. We're not making any money. And like the people I'm playing with are like stressing me out and being like, hey man, like we spent all the gas money on like pot, man. It's so far out. I'm kind of like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, and shit like that.
Yeah.
And then as you get older, it's just like other just personality things and like people
Oh my God, that's amazing.
just being incompatible with you as a human being.
Yeah, that's something that like I think
that you should put on the podcast. If anybody wants to come to my house for miso soup, give them my address.
I should have lined this up for a New York trip so I could add some miso soup. That sounds legit.
Exactly, man. I mean, we could do another one, man. Like, this has been fun.
Awesome. But no, I think that's totally like another aspect that no one even thinks about is like, yeah, you're with these 3 or 4 or 5, however many people in the band all the time. So again, you would just assume, oh, if you're in a band, you're going to get along all the time. But when all of a sudden you're with these people like constantly all the time, and then there's money involved, and you're on little sleep, and promoters start fucking around with you, like when that stress starts to build up, you start to see these real sides of these people, and you're like, I don't think I can fucking be in this band with you anymore. Like I don't think we actually get along when it comes down to it.
It's actually like I mean, did you do any bus touring, or were you always in a van?
We did. The only bus tour we did was when we did Warped Tour for the 6 weeks. We split a bus. That was the only time though.
Okay. So I feel like it's easier to like navigate those kinds of things if you're in a bus because there's more space to get the fuck away from people.
Right.
But if you're in a van, it's like you're in those people's face all day. So if you guys are not getting along, like that shit is like super in your face all day. And like, like there's been times where like, like I'm like a very mild dude, generally speaking. I don't have like a quick temper, but like there's been a couple times when I've almost like beaten bandmates to death over like something that would have been just like, a mild slight in their context, like I would have walked away, but because I had to sit right behind him.
Why are you guys video chatting?
Because there's a podcast. It's not going to be a video component to it.
Or you don't have like FaceTime or Skype?
Well, this is Skype.
Why do you have video?
I mean, like, I do have the video, but I mean, I think the audio is going to sound better if we're not sending out the bit stream with video, and that's going to be what's all important. And like, I feel like the screaming Boston Terrier is actually a pretty solid stand-in for him as the avatar.
Just being his like pants and like.
It's actually because I don't have a fucking face, guys. All right.
You guys are so insensitive about his facelessness.
Like the Elephant Man over here. I don't want to bring it up.
But apparently my roommates are just like not so PC.
Well, good, man. I think even just the few things we talked about, like you said, like being like having the right personalities, like in a touring band, stuff that the normal person who doesn't interact, they go and see a band, they go to a show, they see them, and they're like, oh, look at these guys, they have fun on stage, and then they don't even think about outside of that, like how these people all try to get along, and then 12-hour drive overnight just to play another show. Like I'm not saying woe is them or woe is us or anything, but it's just there's the whole other aspect to it is what interests me, and talking about that stuff. I just love anyone talking about it.
Sage, man. Like there's been times where I've said things to people that are like, I remember telling somebody like, why don't you go color while the big people are talking at some point? It's like, kind of like things that like, looking back on it, I'm kind of like, I can't believe I said that to somebody that I actually like, like.
But that's an incredible insult. That's not go fuck yourself. That's not get out of my face. That's what. Why don't you go color while the adults talk? Is that what you said, or while the big boys talk?
I think I said while the big people are talking, but just even like more kind of like condescending. Actually,
Yeah.
I think adults would get a little bit like kind of like, oh, that's actually a sentence, but big people kind of makes it like you don't know what the word adults means, so I'm going to break it down for you.
I mean, I'm going to take it another step and condescend on another level.
Exactly.
Well, that's great.
I like lessons that matter.
So
yeah, it can be crazy, man. I mean, like I'm trying to think of like specific examples of just like what that's like. But I mean, like it's kind of hard to encapsulate the actual experience of like just being stuck with people, especially if you're not super duper getting along.
Right. Well, and it's funny because before Dr. Manhattan started, we were in another band that eventually became Dr. Manhattan, and we were about to go on our first tour. And the more we got closer to it, we were like, I don't even think we can do this. And then that band disbanded, and then we became Dr. Manhattan. But like up in like I think on paper in bands and whatever else, whatever anyone does, but like on paper, a lot of ideas sound good, and then you start to like really try to figure it out, and you're like, yeah, I don't know if like once we start not having money and we're in each other's faces and we don't have a place to sleep, like if I'm actually are we just gonna fight? Like, are we gonna throw hands in a Walmart parking lot, or what's gonna happen?
I mean, there's been a lot of. I mean, like I have actually a good like anecdote for when things aren't going so well. I mean, this is actually probably best case scenario to some degree, but like my band Classic Case, we had put out our second and also consequently last record, and we were like just on this terrible fucking tour. It was the last tour we did, and like we kind of knew it was like ending, and so like, we're like sleeping in like Flying J parking lots every night. And like just out of like desperation, like for amusement, like I would get like beers at the Flying J.
Yeah.
And then I would also like buy like the Wi-Fi in the Flying J parking lot.
Yeah.
We would just like edit our Facebook band bio that Fearless Records had like paid for. Because like band bios are always kind of like weird and stilted and kind of like
right.
They always sound a little bit too tough for their own good. Where it's like, Classic Case, if they keep murdering their fans or whatever. It's kind of like crazy attitudes that are just kind of like, they seem like, I don't even know where they would actually be in place, but they just seem out of place when talking about music to me, because it's just like this old school, like metal, rock and roll 80s kind of way of talking about like music. And it's kind of like, that's not who we are, really.
Well, they got to get your attention with words.
Yeah, but I mean, like, we would, like, edit those to, like, say, like, crazy things, like, and, like, it'd be, like, whatever, like, if they were, like, kind of, like, if Classic Case keeps killing it live, whatever, it's, like, and we would, like, edit it to be, like, kind of, like, if Classic Case keeps killing their fans and dragging them into the crawl space underneath their house, like, and, like, it was like our way of like coping with everything going wrong was to just constantly rewrite the fucking bio, even though like by like noon the next day, somebody at Fearless, whoever that was, I'm sorry, would like have to re-edit it to actually be the right thing again and not totally insane.
That's great. That's a perfect little summary of. We were never a band where people like labels really got involved in that way. So just hearing that you just kept basically fucking with whoever that was just to be like, look, this is, you know what, we're not having a great time. This is how we're gonna get our kicks. We're just gonna put this up and fuck with this guy that way.
Yeah, well, it wasn't like we were trying to fuck with them per se. Just kind of like blowing off. I just thought it was funny. I thought it was like taking yourself super seriously as like an musical entity always just felt a little bit ridiculous to me.
Right.
I mean, I understand that, like, if you're Rihanna, you kind of have to fucking do that, but we're totally not that. Like, it's like we can afford to have a bit of a sense of humor about everything because everything's kind of a fucking joke right now. It's like, and so it's like, it was always just super weird whenever people would come into the picture on like the management or label side and want to be very kind of like, almost like they want to be provocative, but it just ends up being kind of like douchey. And like, I'm just kind of like, my name's on this. I don't want to do that. Like,
Well, most people that I talk to have just been for the most part, involved with like recorded one kind of big band or been played for one band, committed to that. Didn't really jump around too much or just played in some local bands. So just hearing that even the same kind of, just like the same kind of bullshit. Yeah, I mean, no matter what level of band you're in, you're still going to deal with the same kind of bullshit. It's just at a different scale. There's more people at the show, but there's just the same butting heads. And even if you're on a bus and you can get to your separate corners, it doesn't matter. You still got to deal with that shit.
To some degree, I kind of feel like things can actually get way worse on a bus because like you're not forced to confront each other. Whereas like in a van, like you can only realistically like sustain that kind of animosity for so long before it comes to a head, you know?
Right.
Like, whereas you're on a bus, like, things can really fall apart because it's just like, I can just go hide in my bunk. Fuck you. I don't want to talk to you. Whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's different. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I got, you know, when I was like doing like van tours with like Classic Case, like, you know, there were a lot of times where like me and whoever, I mean, I think specifically my old guitar player Mitchell and me would butt heads a lot. Where like we would just get into it, and like it would get hot for a second. Where like we'd be kind of like, you know, one of us would be like, I'm gonna fucking punch you in the face, and the other person would be kind of like, I don't think that's a really great idea. And then like eventually we'd like actually like talk about how we felt about the situation, and like things would kind of resolve themselves in some capacity. But like in a bus, it's kind of like you can have these like passive aggressive kind of like avoidance kind of things going on for like way longer than is healthy, that can like ultimately just break down and be like kind of like, all right, fuck you, I'm never talking to you again, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and then it's over.
Oh man, even thinking about like I hung out with Andrew last night. He came over and saw the baby. We had dinner and stuff, and even just thinking about being like, if someone you know messaged me, it was like, oh, you got to go on a 6-week tour tomorrow. I just couldn't even wrap my head around that right now. Not to say, you know, it's like impossible to conceive it, but just how little there was into doing it, like that went into going on those things before, and how much it would take to like make that happen now. It's like a whole different world just in the span of, you know, a few years.
How long have you been out of it for now?
Well, yeah, probably like 5 years, 5-6 years.
That's a lot, man.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I've been done with like, especially just since like quitting, like you get used to things. I mean, since quitting Glassjaw, like the first year was a lot of me just kind of like struggling with like it's weird when you do something for long enough, it becomes such a huge part of your identity.
Right.
And like, you know, like I didn't really, it happens so subtly. You're not really aware of it. So like I was unaware of how much like my identity was kind of to some degree hinged upon I'm Durijah who plays in Glassjaw.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's always that kind of conceit. And like for the last year, it's been a lot of me being like kind of like trying to be like, okay, well, now that that's not who I am, who the fuck am I? Kind of thing. And, you know, what am I about now? And it's tricky, man. But like, you know, I totally get the opposite too, where it's like, you know, once you get used to just like being in one spot with some sort of kind of like semblance of stability, it's like the idea of like, wait, you want me to do what? Like get in this van and just drive for 6 months? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and it's totally that, and even just being like, oh, I'm gonna be gone for 6 weeks, and when we would tour before, money was never really a thing because we lived at our parents' houses, and whatever money we came back with was, you know, about the same or less than what we had, so we didn't give a shit. But now it would be like every day I would just be stressing the money, like, and it would just take the whole fun out of like the whole point of doing it.
I mean, really, I mean, like. Having a kid obviously changes things. I mean, like, and really having a kid should change things because, like, if it doesn't, then like you're fucking up probably, you know, like.
Yeah, the guys who are in bands who have kids at home or like that blows my mind. I mean, I respect that they do it and they grind that shit out, but like I could not imagine it. I couldn't imagine it.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't have a kid, and like, so I mean, like, you know, it's pointless for me to even talk about. Like, I mean, like, I can kind of imagine it, but like, I'm imagining like leaving my dog for 6 weeks.
Just,
you know,
it's you can kind of figure out that like, oh, before you would just have to worry about yourself and call in to your girlfriend or whatever, or like Skype with whoever now and then, and that was enough for that. But like, yeah, I mean, she's 4 months old, so if we left for a 2-month tour, it's like, oh, I'd missed half of her life already. Like that's like conceiving like what that actually means, and like, yeah, if you missed like milestones that happen. It's like, oh yeah, there's more to this than me just going out and having fun and continue progressing this, you know, career that I'm going for. It's there's all these other consequences that come with it, and is that worth doing it? Is it worth, you know, going out for that anymore?
Sure. I mean, I guess that's kind of a personal decision, and I'm not, you know, I'm not giving anybody shit who does that, but it just seems like it's got to be like kind of like a difficult kind of thing to live with in some capacity.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, like it's, you know, I mean, I grew up with, like, you know, parents who traveled too, but like, you know, like my mom was gone for like 4 days at a clip or something like that frequently when I was a kid because she was a flight attendant. And like when I was really young, that shit was a bummer for me, man. Like those 4 days felt like fucking forever.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, for a young kid, like, you know, like have like, you know, like one of their like parents be gone for like, you know, 6 weeks at a clip kind of thing. It's like, that's probably got to be rough for, I mean, presumably for both people involved.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I tip my hat to those who figure out a way to do it, and, or if you can bring your families along or whatever way you can make it work. But yeah, it just seems like all the stresses would outweigh whatever good is coming from it. Unless you're like fucking U2 or something, then, you know, you just do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think Bono's children all live in Africa, and they're
all of Africa's children are Bono's. I thought that's how that worked.
Yeah, right? Like, I think that's how that works. They all get those same kind of glasses or whatever.
And a red iPod. It comes with, it's the kit. It's the kid kit. Oh, man.
Do you think people in Africa are bummed about that U2 record? Like, they like woke up and they're kind of like, fuck is this shit?
They probably got it for free. I think he at least hooked it up for them too. All their iPhones came stocked with it.
Oh god.
So what? Man, I don't know. I don't even. I feel bad. I feel bad taking up more of your time. But is there any, like, I don't know, any good, solid, random tour stories you look back on fondly, or any bad ones? I mean, when I talked to Nick Newsham, Gatsby's, I had no idea that they flipped a van and almost killed themselves like that. I mean, there's always those crazy stories. Or
actually, some crazy how don't have any of like that type of like near death experience tour story. Like,
yeah,
knock wood, because I've been you figure if you do it for long enough, it's not a matter of like if, it's a matter of when, kind of, you know. I mean, like, I hope I didn't just jinx myself, because I think I'm doing like the band Burn that I'm playing with is doing a tour with Bane in a month or two.
Okay. Oh wait, is that their final tour?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, like I don't know. I think they announced that tour and we were on it, and then like right after that, that site, thehardtimes.net, put out that song, like that article about like Bane announces last final tour till next final tour.
I saw that too, and I was like, wait, so is it is their last tour or it isn't? I couldn't tell if Hard Times was fucking with them or like actually they had done this a couple times
with them, but I don't really know enough about Bane. They've done like that multiple times or whatever, but you know, that I guess that's obviously like the implication is like there have been multiple, but a lot of bands do that.
Yeah.
But so they were doing a tour with Bane, and so it's kind of like, you know, like I'm always just terrified on like driving tours now, man, especially because like the last bunch of years of my life has been mostly like fly dates with Glassjaw, where it's like my driving's very limited. It's like, you know, we're renting like a minivan and driving from the airport to like the festival grounds or whatever.
Yeah.
So like to be like back out in like a van with presumably a trailer, like driving like long stretches again is kind of a little bit daunting to me, because I'm kind of like, I don't know if I should be like, you know, rolling those dice still, because I rolled them a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like all the time, like on thread sites, it's always I don't think I can go a week without seeing some van trailer has been broken into. I'm like, when did this become a thing that happens every week, like multiple times a week sometimes? Like,
I think it happens I mean, it's been happening for years, but it's been getting worse and worse because I will like figure it out. It's kind of like if you see like a 15 pass and like a trailer, it's like there's gold in them hills kind of thing. You know? Like, so it's a bummer, man, especially because it's like, you know, like, I mean, like, I see it so regularly now. It's like, you know, so-and-so lost everything.
Yeah.
Donate to their GoFundMe. I'm kind of like, the $2 that I have to donate to that's not going to, I mean, you know, you could buy like one guitar string, but like, you know, it's not really going to do a whole lot for them. It's just like, I mean, like, it's great that that kind of thing exists for bands that are of a certain stature, but if you're like a band that's like a baby band and like nobody really super duper cares about you yet, it's like that's over. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, like go back to work and buy new instruments, and then you can try again later, kind of thing.
It's like the end of a video game. So start again? Question mark.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's horrifying.
Well, and you can only do like I feel like there's like a threshold of you can only do so many Kickstarters and GoFundMe's until people are like I feel like they're just gonna roll their eyes at you or be like are you done? Like are you panhandling online now or what? Like
I mean, it's like super oversaturated, and like some of the things that I see are like, at least on the surface, seem like totally worthy causes. It's like so and so needs help getting a new spleen. It's like I want to help somebody get a new spleen. Like I wish we lived in a place that was like built in a way where somebody didn't have to like essentially high tech panhandle to get a new spleen.
Yeah.
But here we are.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I mean, totally. It's like you almost get kind of like inured to the fact that these people are probably legitimately in need because it's so many people are in need, but you're just kind of like, I can't even deal with this shit,
Right.
And like, that might actually be kind of damaging. And like, that's why, like, I mean, like there's like the funny, not so funny stuff as well, where like, I spent all my money on Powerball tickets or whatever, GoFundMe, and it's kind of like,
yeah,
okay, this is exactly why I'm suspicious of everybody.
Because
but
yeah, there's always got to be a bad apple in the bunch. Ruin it for the rest of you.
Yeah. This is why we can't have nice things, Nick.
It's true. It is very true. Well, good, man. Fuck. This has been great. Thank you for like last minute randomly just jumping on Skype and doing this with me. I totally would want to do it again at a time that gives you some notice and you can not just scramble to have to, cut into your Thursday night miso soup hangout. But it's been excellent because when I posted like future interviews, yours was easily the one that people were like most excited about. So I was like, all right.
I'm surprised that like people care because I always kind of feel like such a like. I mean, you get it, man. Fucking drummers, like you're almost kind of a non-entity.
Yep.
It's like, so it's like, and so it's like always kind of like shocking to me that people are kind of like legitimately interested. I mean, like I always forget that like I actually have some sort of like publicly traded import kind of thing, and like occasionally like I'll say something just very unguarded to somebody online who's like into one of the bands that I've played with, and like I'm not thinking about it really,
right.
But I mean like it'll like end up on like PRP like in like an hour and a half or 10 hours or whatever. And I'm kind of like, really? My dumb quote that I wrote on like Facebook Messenger is like fucking is like it's bizarre. So I can't take myself seriously like that.
You're a somebody too, Durijah.
Yeah,
well, that's part of why like there's podcasts and people and different things that interview like just the singers and the main frontman, but like I'm not one of those guys, and I know that the other people in bands are like just as interesting or have even better stories, or like I don't like that perspective is good, and I'll grab one of them once in a while, but like I relate much more to the person who like kind of hides behind the scenes a little more, who either does production stuff or has a drum kit or something gigantic to block them and don't like.
Wait, have you done anything with Casey yet?
Casey Bates?
Yeah,
I did. We actually did a long ass interview and it ended up being a 2-parter. So we talked. Yeah,
I'll have to listen to that, man, because I dig on like a lot of like the Gatsby shit that he did, and then as well. Actually, by the way, I mean, I guess you could probably edit this the fuck out, but I need to get a copy of the Dr. Manhattan record. If you have it, you could send me, because I don't see that anymore. My old iPod deleted itself.
Yeah. Do you mean like vinyl or digital?
Just like digital. I mean, I'm not a vinyl collector. My father did that, and now I have to get rid of it all. So
yeah, I can definitely send it to you. I can send you any of this shit you want.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to have that available to me, because I remember really enjoying your stuff. So
thanks, man. Yeah, I will. I'll get that over to you. I'll text you and grab your email, and then I'll send it over to you.
All right, man. Yeah, so it's like I mean, I'm assuming we're more or less done for the evening. But
yeah, man.
If anything doesn't work out in terms of like sound quality or just like noise levels or whatever, and you want to just kind of like re-chat some shit, I mean, obviously it won't go down exactly the same way because I actually don't have this written down speaking extemporaneously, but...
No, this was great, man. I loved every part of it, and I will not change it. I like leaving it unedited and just all the noise and your roommates in the background. It was perfect, man.
Marvelous. I mean, so when can we expect our royalties for the podcast?
Man, if you expected to get money from anything you've been doing, then you are sorely mistaken. You should have learned that lesson by now.
Yeah, I know. I should. Did you see that? Are we friends on Instagram? Because I have like I posted like one of my old royalty statements from Classic Case.
Oh God, I didn't know you were on Instagram. I got to find you on there. That sounds hilarious.
it's you have to look up how to spell it because I can't tell you, but it's Ashkenazi Osborne.
Okay.
And, yeah, I got this statement from like years of like royalties or whatever, and it was like $50 or whatever. I was kind of like, yay, it was all worth it.
Yeah. It was all worth it. And that'll be the name of this episode. It was all worth it.
It was all worth it. It was all a dream.
Thank you, dude. I appreciate it. I appreciate you giving some time on a Thursday night. Go warm up that miso soup and enjoy yourself.
I'm going to do the fuck out of that, man. But you take it easy, and hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Yes, man. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
No doubt, man.
Take it easy, buddy.
You too, man.